Okay, so a massive new batch of Jeffrey Epstein files just dropped, and some of the world's most powerful names are all over the headlines. We're talking Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Donald Trump. But what do these documents actually say about them? So let's cut through the noise and separate the hard facts from the social media frenzy.
You've seen it, right? It's all over your feeds. Headlines are just exploding with speculation about who's involved.
Then another name pops up, and another, and it's just this absolute storm of confusion and online accusations, making it nearly impossible to sort through what's real.
Yeah, it can feel pretty much impossible to keep track of what's a documented fact and what's just, another unverified rumor flying around.
And it's all swirling around these brand new documents and what they might contain. I mean, it is a lot to take in.
Okay, so let's just take a breath and cut through all that chaos. We're going to break down exactly what these files are, what they say, and maybe most importantly, what they don't say.
So first things first, we got to understand where all this is coming from. What even are these Epstein files, and why are they suddenly everywhere right now?
Okay, when I say big, I mean colossal. We're talking about the U.S. Justice Department unsealing over 3 million pages of documents in early 2024. Just think about that number for a second. It's absolutely staggering.
So what's in there? Well, you've got emails, internal reports, over 180,000 images, and thousands of videos from decades of investigations. But, and this is super important, there are two huge catches. First, most of it is heavily redacted, blacked out to protect victims' identities. And second, this isn't even everything. We're still not seeing the full picture.
Okay, with all that in mind, let's dive into the first big name that's been making headlines, Elon Musk. So where does he fit into all this?
All right, so the files show that there was email correspondence between Musk and Epstein way back in 2012, 2013, and apparently those emails talk about potential travel to Epstein's private island. That's the fact. That's why his name is in there.
Now, Musk himself came out and responded to this, right away. He said the emails were minimal, and this is the key part, he says he turned down the invitations to the island, repeatedly.
So here's the bottom line on Musk, right? The emails exist. That's a fact. But there's no proof in these files that he ever actually went to the island. And this case is a perfect example of the main theme here. Just because someone's name is mentioned, it doesn't automatically mean they're guilty of anything.
Okay, let's move on to Bill Gates. This situation is totally different, and honestly, it's even more complicated. It really shows you how careful you have to be when reading these things.
So with Gates, we're not talking about back and forth emails. We're talking about draft emails that are attributed to Epstein, and in these drafts, there are some pretty wild, unverified claims about Gates, including a mention of an STI.
And you can bet the response from Gates's camp was fast and furious. They basically said it was absurd, false, and completely untrue. A total, flat-out denial.
And look, this is such a critical lesson in how to read these kinds of raw documents. These claims, they're not verified facts. They're just allegations found in drafts attributed to Epstein, not official legal findings. It's a huge reminder that document dumps like this can be filled with nasty, defamatory stuff that was never, ever proven.
All right, now on to Donald Trump. His name also pops up a bunch of times, but the way he's mentioned is all over the place, so we really have to break it down carefully.
So Trump's name shows up in a few different ways. Sometimes it's just other people talking about him in their communications. Other times, the files mention his past socializing with Epstein, which was already public knowledge. And then you have these unverified claims that came from anonymous submissions to an FBI tip line.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The Justice Department itself, along with legal experts, have put a giant warning label on this stuff. They're basically saying, hey, a lot of these statements, especially from anonymous tips, are not proven or confirmed.
And that brings us right back to the single most important point in all of this. Seeing a name in a massive raw document dump is simply not evidence of a crime.
So, the big question is,
how are we supposed to process all this information responsibly without jumping to insane conclusions? Well, it all comes down to context.
So here's a really simple checklist to keep in your back pocket. 1. Remember, this is raw material full of unverified stuff. 2. A lot of it is blacked out, so we don't have the full story. 3. And this is the big one, a mention does not equal a crime. And 4. So far, this huge release hasn't actually led to any new charges against these individuals.
And look, this isn't just my take on it. Experts are screaming from the rooftops, telling the public not to mix up a simple mention with actual proof of wrongdoing. The DOJ itself even says some of the claims in its own files are untrue or sensationalist.
So as we all try to make sense of this tidal wave of information, that's the real question we have to keep asking ourselves, right? In this age of nonstop information, understanding that huge difference between a name on a page and a proven crime, well, it's never been more important.